Hello and welcome to La Jolla Babylon, Season 1, The Making of a Suburban Punk, a podcast where I tell stories of my unsupervised Gen X youth to my coddled millennial little sister, who happens to be the funniest person I know, the writer, actor, and comedian Katie Hartman. I'm your host, Aaron Hartman. So hey, welcome back to La Jolla Babylon.
Thanks. You too.
Wait.
Oh, not to me? Is that not to me?
I mean, it was a general welcome, but yeah, Katie, welcome back.
Hey, thanks.
Welcome back to hanging out with me.
Yeah. Although we just saw each other, so.
I know, but that was the first time in I think a year.
Is that true?
I think it may be.
Oh, that's sad and weird.
I know it's fucked
It's
up,
almost like you should visit me more.
I know. It's very much like I should visit you more.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's on record, so I guess we can move on.
Great. So the family just met up in San Diego.
Yeah. The whole family.
It was kind of a reunion, kind of vacation, but one of the things that we did was we buried our first cousin or her ashes at sea.
Yeah.
And it was really intense and really I mean, it's not a very Jewish thing to do to
right,
bury
especially
someone's ashes
since
at
she
sea.
died in January.
Yeah, we're supposed to put them in the bodies in the ground real fast.
Yeah, but you know what? I think we did exactly what we could do with what we had, and it ended up being very beautiful.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it was funny. I think every adult on that boat, I think at some point we're like, I could do this.
Yeah, my mom was just
really?
my mom was just like, would you like something like that for me? I liked that. I was like, I don't think I'm the one who chooses this, but unless you give no specific plan.
Right.
But hey, as long as I don't have to secretly bury her in our backyard, because that's where she wants to live, be forever, and I have to scoot around some permits, happy about it. I want to be with my land. Bury me with crystals.
Oh, God, yeah. Under the cherimoya tree.
Yeah.
So that company that did the boat, they also do they do full body burials at sea, and that's a whole other thing. I think it's probably really expensive because there's a whole weight thing that they have to do, and that has to be really far out at sea.
Yeah.
But those guys were awesome.
They were so great. They were the most chill, but reverent. Reverent with Southern California chill, which I have never experienced before.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But also the one guy, once he could feel that we were kind of a cool group, he was very he shot out some jokes. Mm-hmm. He shot out some death jokes, which I thought were they were fully appropriate in my mind.
Yeah, he said something, I can't remember what his joke was, and he goes, too soon? And we're like, no.
No, he felt out the room. He got the vibe that we were putting out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good.
No,
yeah,
it was really beautiful. And,
yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine being your kid's age or and a child watching that happen. So, because I don't know, it's a whole other way to take in a funeral.
Yeah. And it felt real, there's no, grass or casket or whatever, but there's something, because to me I feel it's funerals are really also about the impermanence of life,
Sure. Yeah.
And there's nothing that's going to show you how impermanent you are than to have your ashes just fucking just dissipate in the fucking ocean.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because that's just Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, like, as far as like that, the ashes to ashes type of thing, if you're going to think about it, it's like, there you go.
Yeah, that. And then I loved how they also layered it with rose petals, like those like red and white rose petals, so that when it sort of had dissipated and like it's sort of the swells were still bobbing around us and the boat was sort of moving, we still could see where the general area was. And like
sort of marked it a little bit.
Yeah, sort of as like everything sort of spread out. No, it was just this really intense, beautiful metaphor. The only thing I was disappointed with is that like no like dolphins popped up and like jumped around us and we could be like, look, it's Marcy.
I know.
Thanks, Marcy.
I think all 12 of us on that boat were kind of like looking for that. Like seriously, like while we were parked. Like we're all like, is that one?
Like it wasn't like it couldn't just be the like a beautiful service, a beautiful meaningful service on a gorgeous day off the coast of San Diego. We needed dolphins. How rude of us.
At one point,
greedy mourners.
But you did see a stingray.
I did for the first time in the wild.
Yeah, and like I made that like really conscious decision to not to tell my kids.
Yeah, I think that was
because otherwise they would never get in the water
ever.
And it's like so if they got stung, it'd be on me, I guess. But like I sort of figured the chances were pretty slim.
Yeah, that's sort of how I felt too. It was the first time that I really felt like, oh no, like what if I actually get stung by, like, because I grew up doing, the YMCA taught us to do the whatever stingray shuffle along the sand, and I've always just been like whatever. Mostly because when I grew up, the beaches I went to were all rocks, and now they dredged lagoons and stuff to bring actual sand to these places, which is sweet. And then the sand gets wiped away, and then they have to spend money to dredge it more sand. It's a whole tourism in the beach industry, crazy. but like.
So I've heard.
It was kind of crazy. And then the other crazy thing is that when I came back to New York, David, my husband, and I went to Rockaway to have a beach day, and he saw a ray.
Really? New York?
Yeah.
Wow.
But he said it was bigger, and it was more orangey.
Huh.
Like the one I saw was kind of small, but
it was like a New York stingray.
Yeah, it was a Mets fan.
No, it was like the same, but it was like bigger. It was like it
was bigger. It was brighter. It pays more rent, but
But it's worth it.
Yeah, definitely worth it. Don't worry, both rays support cops, 100%. Both the San Diego and that New York ray. I have no idea if that's funny to anyone else.
If that makes any sense.
Makes sense to me. It was a great time. And I thought that I don't think I would immediately scream, "It's a ray! I just saw a ray!" No.
But you were back in the water like 10 minutes later.
Yeah. I didn't get out because of the ray. I just saw it as I was coming out.
Yeah, right.
And then I love the Pacific Ocean, so it's like, well, if I get stung, I'll deal with it.
Okay, let's talk about what's about to happen.
Yeah, what's going on today? I remember last time you were very excited for this time.
Yeah, I think you're going to like this one. It's 2 chapters. I think it's about 22 minutes of stuff. Oh, no, it's only 18 and a half minutes.
Oh, great, because dinner's on its way.
I hear you.
I mean, by on its way, I mean David's making dinner, so.
Yeah. The first one is a run-in between me and my friends and my blind grandmother.
Okay, great.
And some stuff that you don't like brag about later, but I guess I am kind of bragging about because I wrote about it. And then
writing doesn't have to be about bragging. It can also be about confessing. It can also be about atoning.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, I've been bragging. It was a brag. It's a brag.
It's whole fucking thing's a brag.
Cool. I could throw out some more, but we're bragging. Okay, great, done. Yeah. That's the angle.
That's the angle. And then The second one is about my first band that I was in starting the summer of after 10th grade.
Great.
I think that's all you need to know.
All right.
So
well, let's let it roll.
Okay, so I will send you the link, and I will hear back from you when you're done.
Okay, goodbye.
Okay, goodbye. See you, bye.
Okay.
Sweet spot. Dan and Terry were staying at my house for the weekend. I had spent months convincing them that my grandmother was crazy. Nothing she says makes sense. She is out there. Grandma was quite sane, but with that pretext and some of Terry's pot, I knew everything she said would send us sideways. I went into my closet and grabbed an Afghan she'd made using ends from random skeins of yarn. It was an ugly, blotchy patchwork only a blind person would make. I threw it at them. This was Terry's sweet spot. What the fuck? That's insane! I know. She thinks it's beautiful. It didn't take much to get us going. We woke up at noon on Saturday and walked around the corner to share a joint. My grandmother was sitting in the living room listening to the radio when we got back. Dan Jones pointed at her as if he discovered a new species of bird and didn't want it to fly away. I stood in front of her and spoke as if to a child. "Hi, Grandma. How are you today?" "Oh, Adam, I didn't see you there. How are you? Do you know where your mother is? She just plopped me on the couch and left me here." Terry was standing behind her. He took his penis out of his pants and swung his hips in such a way to spin like a propeller. I looked at him and said, "Yeah, my mom is just upstairs and will be down in a minute." Terry put his dick back and started pantomiming jerking off in huge, exaggerated, fluid motions. Sort of like he was doing the locomotion, but with his dick. He was still a pretty good dancer. I picked up a cushion and pretended to throw it at Grandma's head. Dan Jones looked shocked. When I actually threw the pillow, he batted it away just in time. Grandma didn't flinch. "Grandma, are there any good deals at Safeway this week?" "Oh, Adam, I can't believe how expensive everything is around here. Your mother moved me into this tiny apartment and the only shopping is terrible." It was Dan's turn. He held the pillow above her head and lobbed it straight up. Terry had to leap forward to keep it from hitting her. My turn. I took a square pillow and spun it toward her leg with quite a bit of English. Dan kicked it away from her. We were dying, laughing silently. I mouthed, "Watch this," and asked, "But how much are grapes at Vaughn's right now?" Grandma spent a few minutes cataloging the different kinds of grapes and their prices relative to their location as compared to a few years ago. It was as if she had stood on her head and farted Dixie. Dan's response was everything I hoped it would be. Dan Jones fulfilled my need for an audience in the most satisfying way. At the same time, he challenged me more forcefully than anyone in my life. He called bullshit on me like no other. He knew when I was lying or stretching the truth, which was often. He would say, "I know you're lying. Your voice is going up as usual." "No, it's not." Then I'd hear it. He paid attention to me. He was relentless in his ridicule, but he listened to me, and I loved him for it. My mother came downstairs and eyed us suspiciously. She was wearing green leather riding pants, a batik blouse with horses splashed around, and a necklace with wooden horses the size of Barbie dolls. She did not have an affinity for horses. She just liked those particular items. This was before the facelifts and before her need to keep her hair as a self-conscious frame around her face. Her hair was thick and naturally frizzy, and she usually kept it pulled back, although sometimes she'd brush it out to its full glory. She talked about her hair a lot. She talked about how Jean preferred her to have longer hair. The longer the better. She would sometimes cut it just below her shoulders and say, "Jean's not going to like this, but I just needed a change." Requiem. Sharon's friend came over to our house on his ninja motorcycle. Ralph Steinhofer was pale and skinny and had soft blue eyes and thin blonde hair that he pulled back into a ponytail with black lace. He wore long cut-off shorts, combat boots, a skinny puppy shirt, and a leather jacket he had professionally screen-printed with an image of an angry-looking Beethoven. We talked about music. I had just bought Mothership Connection, Double Nickels on the Dime, and Black Sabbath's first 2 records. All I could hear was the bass, and I was obsessed. Ralph was there to ask me to join his new band. He was going to sing. I thought, this is it. In that moment, I saw my next 25 years laid out. All my questions answered. All my problems solved. My mom dropped me off at his house in University City for our first meeting. Just the band getting together to see how we would gel. I knocked on his door, but no one answered. Still and silent black velvet curtains hung from every window. I stood alone on the street, worried that I had come on the wrong day. Then I heard, "Check 1, 2, check 1, 2," and the door opened. Ralph blinked hard and scanned the street behind me. "Hey man, I was out back smoking. It's terrible for your lungs, but does wonders for my voice. Come on in." The walls and ceiling were painted black, and he had one bare light bulb hanging on a chain in the middle of the living room. "Welcome. You've never been here before, right? Take a look around, but don't go upstairs. My snakes are out of their case." I stood in his kitchen, which was full of trash. Canned pineapple, bags of cookies, trays and trays of empty single styrofoam steak packages with pink water splattered on the cellophane wrapper. The rest of the house was immaculate. The floors looked waxed. The only adornment was an ancient high school diploma framed above the fireplace. He had a nice PA, which was set up in the family room where we were going to practice. He spoke into the reverby mic. "Those guys are late. That does not bode well. I don't want to be a dick, but this is a bad precedent. In the meantime," he spoke off mic, "do you want to see the catapult I built?" I did. We went out back. "I've been working on this design since I was 12. It's fully functional, and I dare say a slight improvement over what the Romans used. I use spare lumber and garage door springs. It stands at 7 feet, 3 inches, and weighs a little more than 300 pounds. I've been sanding and staining the wood for months. Unfortunately, I can never use it around here. I think with the torque, this fucker could shoot a bowling ball about 10 city blocks. I did a dry run and it practically flipped over. That's the bell." Ralph left me in the backyard, surveying his machine. The yard itself had no grass, trees, or any other kind of life, not even weeds. There was a shallow concrete patio. The rest of the yard was gravel. My sister had known Ralph in seminar class at La Jolla High School and talked about him with a mixture of admiration, revulsion, and pity. His father had been a famous math professor until he died of cancer when Ralph was 15. Since his mother was living in Ohio and totally estranged, Ralph's lawyer arranged for him to remain in his 5-bedroom house, living alone throughout high school. By the time I met him, Ralph was undergoing a personal change, trying to rid himself of his reputation as a super dork. He was taking jujitsu, bought himself a motorcycle, began renovating his house, and now he was starting a band. I went inside and was delighted to see Tony and his older brother standing in the kitchen with Carl's Jr.'s bags. "No fucking way, dude," Tony told his brother. "This is Adam. He was in band class with me in school." John was tall, blonde, and chubby, almost the exact opposite of Tony. I could hardly believe they were related. Ralph's voice cracked a bit. "No fucking way! That's fucking cool, you guys already know each other. That's rad because I want to have a super tight rhythm section." Ralph sat down on a comfy chair and held the mic. The rest of us sat on the floor. "I basically want to start a band that has the danger of the Sex Pistols, the darkness of Bauhaus, and the look of the Cult. And, needless to say, we need to totally fucking rock." Ralph looked at us as if he was expecting applause. Tony and his brother unwrapped their burgers and ate their pickles. "I have a list of songs I think we should start learning." "Covers?" John smiled unhappily. "Just as a way to get to know each other as musicians, to start off. We can fuck with the songs if we want, make them our own. And I have another guy named Jackson who plays guitar, and he can do leads." Tony and his brother looked at each other. John said, "I can do leads." Then they said at the same time, "What songs?" Ralph went into the kitchen and came back with a yellow legal pad and read off a list of songs I'd never heard by bands I was pretty sure I hated. "I figured we could start with these, plus Jackson already knows them all. He's one of the best guitarists in San Diego. He won a shitload of competitions when he was in high school. He's got a sweet guitar. You'll like him. And chicks fucking love him. So there'll be tons of pussy at our concerts." Ralph looked at us again, and the three of us averted our eyes. John was lying on the floor, squeezing a spring-loaded finger strengthener. He had already eaten both his burgers. Without talking, John and Tony got up and took many choreographed trips to and from their dad's cargo van and set up their gear in the family room. John had a full Marshall stack, meaning a 100-watt amp and 2 waist-high speaker cabinets, each with 4 10-inch speakers, enough power and volume for a 500-person room. He had a suitcase full of effects, which he slowly connected in a broad semicircle. His suitcase also contained a spray for his strings, a footstool, and nail clippers. Tony's drums were similarly oversized. Double kick drum, many toms, and 4 crash cymbals, which seemed to be identical. Tony looked up from behind his rig. "Dude, where's your amp?" I needed an amp. I had been gardening for my mom and babysitting my younger half-siblings and had $500 burning a hole in my sock drawer. I brought all of it to the blue guitar. I lingered in the shop, flipping over price tags on used amplifiers. "Hey, little man, you finally gonna buy an amp?" Brett was pretty intense. He was in a couple heavy metal bands in the neighborhood. He had a deep chin dimple, feathered hair, and he cut the sleeves off his t-shirts. Dio and Iron Maiden were still in the mix back then, but even in 1988, he was an anachronism. I told Brett I needed an amp for my new band. "Sweet, bro, what are you guys called?" We don't have a name yet. We had our first meeting today. Our first rehearsal is Friday. Rehearsal? You mean practice? That's cool. What are you looking for? What kind of stuff are you guys doing? How big are the amps that the other guys are playing? Do you want to try some fucking amps? I didn't know how to recognize when people were on speed yet. He took a translucent bass off the wall and started slapping it. Even unplugged, it sounded good. Brett was really good at slapping the bass. Brett sold me a used 2-channel, 750-watt acoustic brand head and a Fender cabinet with one 18 and two 4-inch speakers, the loudest, coolest looking amplifier setup in the store. It was bigger than I needed and more than I could afford, but Brett gave me a break, and because it was on consignment, and because I was paying cash, and because I was a valued customer, and the store would eat the tax, he let it go for the $500 I had on me. The band spent about 12 hours a week practicing and nearly as much time fighting over what to call ourselves. It's a hard thing to do to name a band. It's basically finding consensus among 5 teenagers on how to identify as what is essentially a superhero alter ego. Everyone who wants to play rock music dreams of how they will look on stage, or how people will talk about them after the show, or how everyone will treat them differently. Rock and roll can make short people taller. It can even make nerds sexy. There are some limitations, of course. Rock and roll cannot make unfunny people funny. That is important to know ahead of time. Think very carefully before giving the drummer a microphone. But rock and roll, when done right, can make uncool people cool. It really can. This is not one of those stories. After weeks of what politicians call spirited debate, we finally settled on a name, the best name, Public Enemy. When we found out about the other Public Enemy, more debating. Ralph's suggestions all sounded like horror movies. Murder of Crows and The Fearsome. John's suggestions sounded like names of football teams, the Firestarters and the Birds. Finally, we settled on Jackson's only suggestion, Requiem. We all agreed it was perfect. Jackson was truly gifted, but there was something corny about how he played that made my skin crawl. Same with John. Both of them took every opportunity to fill the space, like neurotic comedians talking over everyone else, explaining jokes into the void. Guitar Face was the least of it. Perhaps it was the first time I'd been behind the veil of performance, but there was something mortifying about watching Jackson mechanically drop to his knees at the same cue during a solo. And then there was Ralph, who mostly concerned himself with spinning the mic stand and doing the splits. There were a few moments, playing loud, when I felt like I was inside Tony's drums. His sticks and my fingers met somewhere and agreed to be perfect. My jaw went slack and time passed unnoticed. My brain turned off, my hips loosened, my neck turned rubber. I was drooling a little. When I looked up, Tony was staring at me, all intense. He yelled while playing, "Your eyes were rolled into the back of your head!" I found my drug. We played one show at the end of the summer and immediately broke up. About 50 people came to see us at Ralph's house. Terry refused to see us, but Dan Jones stood in the doorway, smiling. We made eye contact once, and I wanted to die. Ralph talked too much between the songs. He drank water out of a vodka bottle and feigned drunkenness, a la Axl Rose. People clapped at the end, but not between songs. Throughout the show, I could feel that we were not good. We were unpunk. I looked at my hands the whole time. At no point did I forget that I was standing there, playing our shitty versions of other people's songs. It was the opposite of an out-of-body experience. Ralph was still talking on mic when John backed the van up to the house and began yanking his amp around. Tony took his drums apart slowly, surveying his instrument like a golfer looking at an important putt. Within 2 weeks, John joined the Army, and Jackson moved to LA like we all knew he would. Ralph got a job as a tennis instructor, and I started 11th grade.
That was so fun.
Oh man, thanks. Awesome. Oh no.
I took notes and everything.
You did?
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank goodness.
You are studious. Thank goodness. Oh man, how dare you?
How dare I? No. All good. I did just have a very delicious dinner, though.
I am so glad.
Me too.
I'm so
I will
glad
also
you're being
say I
taken care
had
of.
some wine as well. So
Perfect.
maybe
That makes it all worth it.
right. Yeah, no, Aaron, I love these chapters a lot.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. The first thing that came to my brain
Yes.
listening to this first one
Yeah.
was boys are terrible.
Yes.
It's
Those are the
rude and unconscionable. Nope.
Sure. Yeah.
What's that
unconscionable.
word?
I think you're correct.
Unconscionable.
I think it's a word. Yeah.
Well, if it's a word,
what
that's a stupid word, and it shouldn't be a word.
But I think it's what we both think it means.
Yeah. I mean, whatever you think it. Yes, exactly.
No conscience.
No conscience. Which is like a very teenage boy thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I know. Yep.
Part of me is now thinking.
Mm-hmm.
like when you write this.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, this is a fun story.
Mm-hmm.
Does it ever turn like while you're writing it, or is it after you write it that you look back, or is it while you're writing it where you're like, well, this wasn't my best moment, but it was kind of funny?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I think it's all of that. Like, oh, you're drinking wine right now.
Yes.
Gulp.
Is that okay?
I like it.
Well, we usually record in midday, and now it's after 8, so.
It's after 8. It does make me feel like I should drink wine too. It's after 5.
Yeah.
So I definitely am conscious of not writing myself as the hero. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And kind of like, yes, this is like a funny, dumb story about being dumb, but also like it kind of illustrates something about boys sucking.
Oh, totally.
You know, and like I fucking sucked, you know, and like, and I probably knew I sucked, but also like sucked enough that I didn't care.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do find it funny that you were like, I'm going to set my grandma up for this. Like, I'm going to plant the seeds to make this be a weird ass moment.
Yeah, I definitely, the throwing pillows at my blind grandmother was real and so fucking funny. I don't know. It was just so dumb and funny.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
It's so
and
wrong.
Just her talking about grapes is so funny. Like you prompting her, you're just like, okay, yeah. I know what's gonna set her off.
Yeah.
What are the prices of grapes?
Because it was like, of all the things.
The other thing that I wanted to bring up. So the very beginning of the story, fucking whips his dick out. I'm just like literally shaking my head to myself. Like I'm just like, no. What is happening? Okay. And then at the end of the story, when you wrote about how your mom was like talking about her hair all the time, and that Jean is like, she's like, Jean likes it to be longer, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, okay, so boys are terrible, and then also men are terrible, and like there's no middle ground of good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think I made that connection when I was writing this, and I've wondered why I even included that thing about my mom and her hair, but I think maybe you just wrapped it up for me.
Yeah, it worked for me. Yeah, no, it made sense to me. Okay, so let's get into the second chapter.
Sure.
Today.
Thanks. Yeah.
Loved it. Also loved the distinction between rehearsal and practice as somebody who comes from the theater.
I played music with a couple people, and this one woman was she was a drummer, but she was originally a dancer, and she would click off with 5, 6, 7, 8.
That's really funny. And like to me, I was like, but now I understand what you mean with the distinction.
Yeah.
So there are many moments within this that both gave me a glimpse into you at that age, and then also where you are now. And like the biggest distinction for me is that when you're playing, I guess in the chapter, you sort of recognize it in rehearsal first, that these guys are being fucking cheesy and corny and doing these things that are very performative, but not in an authentic way.
Yeah.
And that grinds your gears.
Mm-hmm.
Where like a lot of other people might have just looked up to these guys because they were all older, right?
They were older, and also this was an era, this is late 80s, where being a really good guitar soloist and being able to like, hit that move where you dropped your knees and you kind of like lean back and kind of, do that thing. And maybe, like put it behind your head or whatever. I wanted nothing to do with that. Like I just wanted to like feel it.
Well, you wanted to feel it and you wanted to sound good. And that guy wanted to perform it. And like, obviously he probably wanted to sound good, but in practice, not rehearsal, he was rehearsing. You were practicing.
Nice.
Because it's like he was more worried about the optics than about the feeling. I think about you now, and I think about like seeing you play with like Old Time Religion specifically, because like that is a beautifully chaotic show. And like it is so authentic. There, like, while there is performance to it, it's not like Arrington takes off his shirt at this number on this beat to create like a thing. It's just sort of like literally whatever moves him, he's gonna shake his head and sweat's gonna go off at that moment. You know what I mean? Like I felt that way with like improv comedy.
But when you are nailing it in improv, it's the same thing as when you're locked in as a rhythm section, right?
Yeah.
Because you're just kind of, it's working. God, I mean, like working with laughs sounds so...
But it's the same thing with music.
No, but laughs are like, they're like little payments, right? So you get these little gifts throughout your performance, whereas music, maybe you'll get an applause at the end of a song, but like, this is like, these little, you know what I mean? Like these little breadcrumbs of
so
approval.
Funny. I've never thought about them as gifts or little payments. Oh God.
No, I mean like, or deposits. They're like, I keep using money metaphors, but that's not what I mean.
Yeah, it's not apropos because there is no money in improv.
Right.
The people in the audience or whoever's watching is gonna connect with it if they're on that same wavelength with you. If you're pandering, if you're going into it by, let me read it. Guitar face was the least of it is a phrase is a sentence you wrote. But like if you go into it with guitar face or with like this facade of art as opposed to the soul of art, it's a very different reaction, and people still get literally paid for it. Now, if you pay me enough, listen, industry, if you're listening, I would love to do a shitty comedy on NBC. I would love it. Just give it to me. I'll do it.
Fuck out of this shit.
I would crush it, and I would love the money that comes with it. Not to be like this, but like your artistic soul is the same no matter the amount of success. So you just have to be able to appease your soul.
And being in that first band, you know, and I don't know what would have happened if people were like, oh my God, you guys are amazing. Keep going.
Also that you noticed that they weren't clapping between songs, that they only clapped at the end. I love that distinction.
Yeah. Can you imagine? Luckily no one was offering to carve that path out for us. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you don't know where you would end up. I loved the sentence, you cannot make an unfunny person funny.
Oh, yeah.
And basically saying, don't give a drummer a microphone.
And I did learn that lesson later in life. I didn't learn it in that particular band. Because if you're like, oh yeah, my drummer can sort of do harmonies, and they get the microphone, they have the microphone for the whole fucking set. And they're going to crack jokes in between songs.
Yeah, they're going to step on like whoever's actually talking.
Just don't do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and usually like whenever a drummer tries to say something, it's like a voice, and then you're sort of like looking around and be like, who said that? And then it's not until like somebody on stage turns around and looks behind them that they're addressing the drummer or something like that. Do you know what I mean? But also like, how cool. Did you ever read those, probably not because they were probably written for girls, but those Weetsy Bat books?
I read the first one. I read the first one. I didn't know that there was more than one.
Oh, maybe. I think that there's more. But in one, she's a drummer, right?
What? Is she? Oh, God. I read one when I was like in college. Like my girlfriend in college gave one to me. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. We can cut this out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
next time.
Yeah.
We are going to hear just one chapter. It's a fairly long chapter and kind of a lot happens in it. And it's also a little bit of a continuation of the Boys Suck theme, or I should say I Suck theme, or I Sucked.
You can
theme.
Say Boys Suck. That's okay.
No, but it's me. But anyway, it's whatever. But it's it's a good adventure. And
I'm very excited.
Yeah, and a lot happens in this next guy.
And I also want to say that I already knew that because we already said that. Bye.
God, don't.
Love you. Bye. What are the prices of grapes?
Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you heard, please tell a friend and subscribe. Your 5-star rating will help others find this fucking podcast. Please check out the show notes for links to Katie's comedy and a full transcript of the show. La Jolla Babylon Season 1, The Making of a Suburban Punk, was written, produced, and edited by Aaron Hartman, with music by Aaron Hartman, co-piloted by Katie Hartman, presented in association with Ruinous Media. To hear more episodes of this show or other Ruinous Media podcasts, please go to ruinousmedia.com or wherever you get your podcasts.